So, after Diane Abbott released an awfully racist letter to The Observer saying that Jewish people, travellers, Irish people can't experience racism, they can only experience prejudice, and has received backlash from that, had the whip removed from the Labour Party, Farage has bravely commented on this, commenting on the Labour Party, the state of the Labour Party, and saying that it's left an open goal for Keir Starmer.
For Sir Keir Starmer, this must be like Christmas has come early. Another chance to prove that he really is cleaning up the Labour Party. He's got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, and now here was Jeremy Corbyn's shadow, Home Secretary, giving Starmer a complete open goal. He's acted quickly, he's made it clear he thinks her comments were anti-Semitic, and she is suspended.
I'm not that quite convinced that Starmer is the centrist that the media depicts him as. I think it's the same way Blair was depicted as a centrist while enforcing the most awfully progressive leftist policies there, like the Communications Act, for example, the Gender Recognition Act, or Brown with the Equality Act, which have left an absolute mark for the worse on the country. And I think if Starmer got into power, it would be the same. I think he's a progressive in sheep's clothing, quite frankly. So I don't think it's a good thing that, well, I think it's a good thing that Diane Abbott's been removed, but I don't think it's a sign that the Labour Party, if they come into power, and probably unfortunately when they come into power at the next general election, that they will be any better, that they'll be more centrist. I just think they'll hide that hide that leftism and radicalism. What do you think, Darren?
I mean, there are a few things to say on this, really. I mean, first of all, taking the letter itself, we now know, the Jewish Chronicle reported, Jess, that actually this letter had been sat with the Observer, that's the Sunday paper of the Guardian. It had been sat with them for a week, and she sent it from her own personal parliamentary email, and she says that it was a draft, Jess, but the Observer received no edit request or anything of that nature to them. So it sort of puts to bed this argument that actually it was just a draft letter to the Guardian. I mean, comparing the plight of the Jewish people to the plight of ginger people is absurd, Jess. I mean, I've never heard anything so utterly ridiculous in all of my life. The idea that, you know, gingers have been so oppressed throughout history that they have suffered, it was almost 6 million, or if not more, 6 million people, human beings, that were killed just for being Jews, right, by the Nazis. Now, in the most atrocious, horrendous, horrific, mind-numbingly awful ways possible. And she compared that to ginger people. I mean, you have to sort of laugh at it just because it's just so completely and utterly absurd. Now, putting that to one side, that's Diane Abbott, right? On the point about Sir Keir Starmer, let's not forget, Jess, that for 2 years and a general election, 2 general elections in fact, Sir Keir Starmer offered succour and support to both Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott. Now, Diane Abbott is someone that, in a debate with Michael Patillo, she said that Chairman Mao, basically, some would argue, did more good than bad. I mean, Jess, this is a man that starved millions of his own people in the name of communist ideology and dogma. Now, that to me is not the sign of someone that did more good than bad, right? I pretty much draw the line at actively putting in place policies that you know are going to starve your own people and are starving your own people and not rowing back because you're so ideologically wedded. But then you realise that actually Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn are equally as ideologically wedded to this dangerous ideology that has failed not once, not twice, but so many times. History is littered with examples of this ideology going wrong and leading to a form of coercion that later leads to death, starvations, murder, you name it, the worst atrocities you can imagine. In fact, I would argue Chairman Mao, right, his murder toll higher than that of the Nazis. You don't hear that, though, in British schools. You don't hear that across the West. And Sir Keir Starmer added succour and support to get these two people, Diane Abbott as Home Secretary, Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. Now, Jess, he rolls back on all of that and says, oh, well, I was never Jeremy Corbyn's friend. Well, actually, he's on record as saying that to several media outlets whilst he was trying to get them elected. And it's the same with Diane Abbott now, right? He never had a problem about Diane before now. He only suddenly does when it comes down to this, her revealing herself in this way. And as it happens, just I think it's a good thing that she's revealed herself in this way, because we now know for certain that that's what these people think, right? We now know with absolute crystal clarity that sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. And boy, oh boy, do the hard pockets of the Labour left need some pretty strong disinfectant for those vile views. And I just think the left gets away with it, Jess, in a way in which the right never would. And there has always, frankly, been a strain of anti-Semitism that has ran through the intellectual left, if I'm allowed to call someone as docile as Diane Abbott an intellectual. But she did go to Cambridge, God only knows how. But it's very revealing, Jess. And I think you're right that actually Sir Keir Starmer, he can scream until blue in the face about how he doesn't want to align himself with these people. You tried to get them into power. He would have been serving them loyally had they been in power. So the hypocrisy of this man, the lack of backbone of this man, Sir Softy, Sir Spineless, call him what you want, I think is a complete and utter charlatan. And I'm delighted that both he, Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, they've all been exposed. So Jess, a plague on all their houses, I say. Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.